Welcome back to Universe. I'm Andrew, and today I'm playing Ynaros Fallin, the solo mode. So I have a two-player playthrough up on the channel already, but in case you haven't seen that, here's a brief rundown. This is normally a 2 or 4-player game out of the base box. There are different expansions where you can play at the different levels. I have the level 3 playthrough, which is all the expansions in the base box of the prototype version that I have. So make sure to pay attention to what version you're getting or what you're backing, or wherever you pick up the game, to make sure that you have the final components and you know what versions and rules and stuff are going to be in that version. But this version that I'm playing now is the solo mode, and the solo mode is part of the expansion box, again, at least in the prototype expansion box that I've got. Speaking of prototypes and different versions of the game, I'm using these deluxe components, which have these shamans. I think these are 3D printed, but I'm sure your deluxe edition will not have that. But they have these removable masks, so this would be a follower and this is a shaman. And in the solo mode here, I'm only going to be playing with one shaman who's going to be starting right here. If you don't have the deluxe version, you'll have like meeples. You'll have follower meeples and you'll have shaman meeples. So you just swap them out. I have a follower meeple over here on the equivalent of this, but on the other side of the map, and he's being held hostage. So I need to get over there and rescue him. I'm playing on mission 1, the shaman sacrifice. So this is the scenario I'm playing, but there are multiple scenarios. There's one that has like a dungeon crawl through these tiles here. There's like a boss fight. There's a pick up and deliver mission. So various scenarios you can play in the solo version. But this is mission 1, the rescue mission. These clouds are one of the, I don't know if it's level 4 or level 5, but it's other extras you can add to the game with that expansion box. But in the solo mode that is required, I've got my die set to 4. That's the starting position. I've drawn 5 of these power cards. These are my starting cards. Oh, and this is actually a pretty bad hand because I have 4 blues and I'm playing as yellow, which means I only have 1 card that matches my color. The other 4 don't match. It's not great, but I have the shuffle deck back over here where you probably can't see it. I have only 3 health in this solo mode, and the experience point tracker, or the victory points, is instead a countdown timer. So I only have 10 turns to win, and this is my player board for the solo mode. So I'm not going to be getting locations, and I'm not going to be storing, or I guess I can get crystals. I've got 6 slots up here, but I'm starting with this divination token, which I can use to stop the enemy monsters, or maybe manipulate one of these haze tiles. Speaking of monsters, you can see this is the main enemy shaman that I'll be starting up against, the black shaman. And there is a follower, another shaman, and another follower in that queue over there. So those can be spawned out onto the board through certain tile reveals. But a lot of the symbols on these tiles are going to be beneficial, so I am going to need to reveal them. And in fact, I can't even move through them. So I'm going to have to reveal them and just hope that they don't spawn too many enemies. So with that, I may as well get started. So one thing that's the same as the 2-player game is we're going to start with, or I'm going to have 2 actions on each of my turns. I should actually be starting here. And the cards in my hand, I had to reset a little bit, but I'm going to be starting with these. I reshuffled and I've got yellow, 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 blue, blue, which is not bad, not amazing. I can use the yellows to place shadow tiles as I discard them. That's a level 2 feature of the game, which you will see if you saw my 2-player playthrough. But I'm going to have 2 actions, just like in the 2-player game, before the monsters get to take their turn. And I got the 5 movement points, and I think I want to go this way toward this red land. So in this particular mission, there's only 1 land on the entire board, and it's 1 randomly chosen red land, that's the one I got. Oops, I forgot to reset that. And then I'm going to spend 5 movement to go 1, and I'm going to flip this haze. There's good stuff and bad stuff on these tiles. So in this case, we got a monster, which is a bad stuff. These 2 are good stuffs, and this is a space no one can move through. So another evocation token appears here, and I'm playing with only the evocation tokens that came in the expansion box because they have this different colored back, and all of them do the same thing, which is +2 in battle. So the rules say that you use all of the evocation tokens that are marked with a solo indicator, which is none of the ones I have in this prototype. So hopefully there'll be a little more variety, but in this game, we're only going to be getting those tokens. But the monster summoned symbol means we're going to go dig into the queue here in this order, and so this follower is going to be added to the board on the enemy equivalent of this space here. So they're going to have to set a little bit of a path, and they're going to be hanging out with my captured follower until they get to activate, which will be after my second action, but I'm currently still doing my first action because I have three more movement points. So moving across this tile, this counts as a shadow hex of my color. So I get to move across that for free. So this is 1 movement point. So I have 2 movement left. And I think I'm going to skip this one and go over to here and pick up that +2 in battle. I still have a second action, but after I move, my shadow die degrades down to a 4. It goes down by 1, but that's just enough to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and get another one of these tokens. Hopefully my opponent won't be able to get me, but it'll depend on how high they roll. But we're going to find out right now, because the way the monsters work is they're going to roll their black shadow die, got a 5, and that's how much movement they get. So that was for this first shaman here, the only shaman that's out. And their favorite thing to do is flip these haze tiles. So with 1 movement point, he's going to do the same thing. He's going to flip this over. He revealed another monster symbol, so now another monster comes out. The rules aren't totally clear on this part. Hopefully your final version will be, but I'm not sure if a monster that is summoned can act in the same round that it is summoned, but I've been playing as that they do not. Or rather, this follower was summoned by my action, so it's going to activate, but the newly appearing shaman is not going to. At least that's how I'm doing it. So the shaman still has 4 movement left. And this counts as my color of shadow tile, so it actually is the same amount of movement to go this way as it would be to go around. So I'm going to say that he uses his second movement to go there. But now that he's there, he really wants to flip this hex. So he's going to spend his 3rd movement point to flip that over. And he revealed some dark shadow, which costs 2 movement for everybody to move across, as well as a crystal, which means a crystal appears there. And we only use the red lava crystals in this version. But his second favorite thing to do is go pick up crystals. So he's going to go here and for a movement point, pick that crystal up. And that was all 5 movement. So again, I'm not going to activate that second shaman, but I will activate the follower who gets 7. And he's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they're really catching up to me. That ends the round. So I'm going to take one of the timer cubes off. 9 turns left to go for me to rescue my follower. I should have put this down to a 3 after my second movement action. So if I move again, I only get to move 3. Now 2 of the enemy monsters already came out onto the board. I'm trying to think of the best strategy, because if you kill a monster, if you go into a combat and you push their indicator all the way back to the skull and you win the fight, while they're there, they're removed from the board, and for the monsters, they're being sent back to that queue over there, so they can come back out again if another monster symbol appears. But if I reveal all of the tiles, maybe one of them has a monster, or maybe one or more, and that last follower comes out, but then there'll be no way to spawn any more monsters after that. So then if I start killing them, they'll just stay dead. The problem is, it's not actually that easy to win a fight. When you do go into a fight, the enemy gets as many cards as you have to a minimum of 5. So if you have 0 cards, they get 5. If you have 10 cards, they get 10. If you have 5 cards, they get 5. So that's the best number of cards to have, just to have like an even fight, so they don't end up with more than you, or the same large number. I guess any large number is fine, at least it's a tie. And you get to play your cards smarter. So maybe bigger hand is better. So I think I'm going to move, and I'm going to move 1, 2, 3. That's all the movement I get because I have a 3. I'm going to claim another tile, another +2 to combat. And this degrades down to 2. Now this die goes from 2 to 7, so 2 is the minimum value. My second action, I'm going to do another action, which is in the base game, which is to just draw 5 cards. So I am going to go up to 10. So if we do have a battle, it's going to be an epic one. I got only 5 yellow cards, which is not ideal. I would have liked to have 6. I also have no crystals, but those are my 2 actions, so the enemies get to go. Now this time there are 2 shamans. We're going to start with the one that's closest to me, and he gets a 3. So he's going to go 1, 2, 3, and not quite enough to get to me. But even if he had more movement point, again, his favorite thing is to flip tiles, so he wouldn't have attacked me until he flipped that tile first. The other shaman back at the hearth gets a 6, so he can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and just like that, he wants to flip this tile with his last movement point, and that is another monster spawn. So I'm going to move the last follower out onto the board, get another evocation token, and now all the enemies are out. But I still don't want to kill any of them until I flip these tiles, because if I killed one, they could just get respawned. So lastly, the follower in the back there is going to go with 4, and he's going to try to come after me as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm getting swarmed a little bit, and now my die is really low. I could still just move 2. I can move 2 all day without degrading my shadow die. You know what? I think I will, because I don't want to spend any cards. I'm just going to get more stuff, although I do need to degrade this again. I'm going to spend 1 movement point to flip this tile. That'll spawn another monster, but there are no monsters to spawn. And my second movement, I'm just going to step here and pick up another token. My die doesn't degrade because it's at its minimum. And then I'm going to move across my color terrain for 1 movement, 1 and 2, and get another token and let them try to come after me now. So this shaman will go first, and he gets a 7. That's overkill because he only needs 1, 2, 3, 4 to flip this tile because he's next to it. That's his favorite thing. So that's all the tiles we're going to see. And then with another movement, he will move in and fight me. So he gets to draw 10 cards because I have 10 cards. So I'm just going to make a little stack of 10 cards. He gets to go first because he initiated the fight. And we reveal for him a yellow card. Yellow is my color. So that's going to push me back 1 space. If it had been his color, which in this case would be blue, it would push me back 2 spaces. These combat points generated by cards can also be used to pull yourself forward. So now I could use a card to generate points, which I'm going to do. And I could use that to move forward back to 0. But I think instead I'm actually going to spend a token and not a card. And that's a +2. And I'm going to push him back to the -2 spot. I won't play a card or anything. Oh, actually, I made a mistake. He always starts by playing crystals, so he shouldn't have played this. Let's rewind that. I'll take my token back. The monsters always play their crystals first, and they do actually have 1 red crystal, so they're going to spend that to roll the battle die. Their battle die is the black one, so they get a 3. So 3 is going to push me back to -3. Does that change my plan? I think I'm only allowed to play 1 of these tokens per turn. I don't think I care. I'm just going to do 2, push him back 2, and then let him do his worst. So now he'll do a yellow and push me back to 4. And now I'm thinking I want to do a 2 to move forward. I don't want to... I guess he's only can do 1 or 2 at a time because that's the card's either going to be yellow or blue. But yeah, you know what? Let's leave it. I'm going to stay at -4, and I'm going to push him back to -4. And then he gets another yellow card, so I go to 5. I'll spend another token and push him back to 6. He will play a yellow card, push me back to 6. And now this is interesting. So I'm going to play a token. The token's going to push him back to 8, which is the skull position. When you hit the skull, you have to lose something. So in his case, all he has are these cards, so he's going to lose a card. And I can also play a card though, and I think I want to because if he happens to flip a blue, it's going to push me back 2 to the skull, and I don't want to hit the skull. So I'm going to also play a blue card to push 1, and with this one I'm actually going to move myself forward. Now on his turn, he gets to go and he reveals a yellow, which is nice, but since he is on the skull, he uses that to pull himself out of that situation. Then on my turn, I'm actually going to save my token because I only need a 1 value to push him back into the skull, meaning he has to discard another card. And then for his turn, he gets a blue to pull himself out to the -6. So I'll use a token to push him back to 8. He loses a card. He plays a card, which is yellow. He wants to move back to the 7. I'll play another blue card to push him back to the 8. And he loses a card. And he has nothing on his turn. He's losing the fight. He's got nothing to do, so I win the fight, and I win the fight with him on the skull, which means he is defeated and he goes back into that queue. If I had lost, I would have lost one of these vitality cubes. If it were the 2-player game, there would be a point exchange and things like that. And in fact, even in this monster version, the winner would claim my cube, which is a wild color. Well, that's relevant for the 2-player game. For this version, him getting one of my vitality cubes is bad because I'm closer to dead, but also then the monsters can use that. And I've done the same mistake I do, which is I always send the indicator shaman to home, but it's this one who lost the fight, so they did a little dance moving around. But that was just that one shaman's activation. So now it's this shaman that gets to go next, and now I spent all of my tokens, and I have 7 cards left. So hopefully this doesn't go poorly. Shaman gets 3. To go 1, 2, 3. Closer follower gets to go with a 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I did that wrong. It takes them 2 movement to move across my color. So I'm not going to rewind that, but I think it would actually have to stop, or maybe it would have moved this direction, and maybe this one would have had to go around as well. Yeah, I think I must have messed it up with that other shaman, but I'm not going to rewind that far. But yeah, these are my colors, so they take 2 movement for the monsters to move across. The last follower gets to go with a 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Getting very close. So the followers, if they join your space, they don't actually fight. What they do instead is they just roll, I think, their battle die and make you discard that many cards. Also a bad thing. But now that they've chased me this far, oh, we got to count down again. I'm wondering if I should just make a break for it and try to go around to my follower. The thing is, once I get my follower, I have to spend 2 movement for every space I move. So it's going to cost me double the movement to get back. And I just realized another mistake, which is that if this guy was going to go around this way, he would have actually moved here because he wants to take it. So it'll take him another movement point to pick it up, but I think that makes sense that he would have done that. And I'm not saying I have to decide logically what his smart move would be. I mean, I'm trying to adjudicate the monster rules without having done it correctly the first time, and now I'm basing it on my memory. So apologies for that. But now, do I want to try to fight them? I could like just jump in to this follower and I could probably demolish it. Because I haven't shown you, but I can use cards of my color to great effect, especially as the aggressor. Or I can just make a break for it. All right, I'm going to do a slightly weird move, I think. And that's just going to be to use my 2 to go 1, 2. It's already at the minimum. I'll use my second action to go here. And that's the last tile, other than this one, which is pretty much already locked down. I guess I could have gone after it, but I'm not going to. So those are my 2 actions. The shaman will go next. He gets a 2. So all he does is take this token, and I think they do get to use it. And then his second move is just going to be creep a little toward me. These 2 are equidistant from me. I guess this guy could get there in 4 moves. So he'll go first. He gets a 3. Perfect. So just 1, 2, 3. And then this one gets a 3 as well. 1, 2, 3. So I don't get attacked. That is the end of the monster phase. I get to go again. So I'm going to discard cards to increase my shadow die, and I'm going to spend 5 cards to raise a 2 up to a 7. 3 of them are yellow, and I'm actually going to use them to play my very limited supply of only 2 shadow tiles. We'll see if I regret that. This could be too risky of a move, actually, but with one card, 1 yellow card, I get to place 1 shadow tile. I'm going to put it here. Yeah, I think so. And then the other one I'm going to put here. And if you know the level 2 version of the game, you know I could have placed 5 shadow tiles, but in this solo mode I only have 2 available. There are ways to pick up more. For example, this red land could have been a different ability that maybe granted shadow tiles or something like that. Some of the other haze tiles have the ability to add more shadow tiles to your reserve, but I didn't get any of those. So those 2 are all I've got, but those are the same as this. It takes the enemy's 2 movement to move onto them, and it makes movement across them for me free. So with my second action, I'm going to use my 7 movement to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In case you can't see that, I've made it all the way to the enemy side where my follower has been waiting patiently for me. But now in order to move back, it's 2 movement per space. My 7 degrades to 6, and it goes to the monster phase. Shaman will go first, and he gets a 6. So he's coming for me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The enemy shamans actually cannot move through my color, so he cannot get any closer to me. The followers, however, are able to destroy my tiles. So let's see how that goes with this follower first. Getting a 2. So it's actually just going to need to go around the long way. And then the other one, a 3. I mean, I guess it could go 1, 2, 3. But yeah, if they make it, basically, if they go to, just like the shamans and everybody, they've been hunting down these tiles and crystals and whatnot, and taking them or opening the hazes, flipping the hazes. If they're next to one of my tiles, the followers will spend their 2 movement, because it takes 2 movement for them to get onto it. Or does it? Maybe it only takes 1. And I guess I would just take 1. The shamans can't move onto it at all, but the followers can move onto it normally, but they'll move onto it and then they will spend a movement point to destroy it. And again, I only have 2. And I've placed them now, so they are vulnerable. That ends that monster phase. The game is halfway over unless I can end it sooner, or if I die sooner than that. And I was looking through the rules a bit and realized I missed something important, which is every time a monster spawns, they get a crystal. So the monster should have had these 3 crystals available to them, which I'm pretty sure would have been relevant. But I'm not going to rewind the fight. So apologies again. If I win, it doesn't count, but I'm still going to finish. I've got 6 movement, but it takes 2 to move 1. So I go 2, 4, 6 over to here. And then I could go, then I would go down to a 5, and then I could only move twice because it's an odd number. It's very awkward. So I could go 2, and then with these free moves, I could go 4 to right here, right in the middle of all the enemies. I could go right there, but I would get to use my shadow tiles before the followers jump in and destroy them. Or I could not do that because I might just die. So that's kind of what I'm leaning toward. But I'm going to move once. 1, 2, 3. Go down to a 5. And then I think I'm going to draw 5 cards. So I'm going to go from just 2 cards up to 7. Let's hope for a lot of yellows. And more yellows than not. That's pretty good, but still not 6. I want 6 yellows. That was my second action, so they get to go. I'm not even going to roll for the shaman though, because it cannot move closer to me with those tiles there, and the shaman goes before the followers. So we'll move this follower next. I guess they're the same distance, but 2 is going to be 1, 2, and then the other one gets a 2. 1, 2. So it didn't move, or they didn't destroy it. I could still use it. So I could just run for it, or I could make a stand and try to fight. But with them having 3 crystals now and a +2 token, and they'd get 7 cards, because that's how many I have. It's an average of about 10.5. This should be reset. I also have a token. I just want to make sure I don't lose the fight. If I do lose the fight, my follower gets sent all the way back. I get sent back, and I basically have to start over. In addition to losing a crystal. I think I forgot to take one of these off. Can I even get back in 4 turns? That's another question. So I think I just have to try to run, especially since I still can benefit from my shadow tiles. Although I might have not placed them in the best spot to like make use of the fact that this is also my color. I could have like made a row of them, but I was coming from here. But at least for getting back, it would be great to be able to like go 1 and then 2. But instead I'm going to be going 2. But I think I am going to do that. Now, this is confusing. There's a rule that more than 2 characters can't be in the same hex. As you can see, this hex has 2 characters in it. They're both monsters. That's a coincidence. They don't have to both be the same color. 2 monsters per hex. But I'm going to be sliding right through it. I'm not going to be landing there, but I don't think you can move through enemies at all anyway. I'm not sure about this because the rules do make it clear that if you go into a enemy shaman space, even for a moment, you have to fight them. But it does not say the same thing about the followers. In fact, you don't fight followers at all. I think you can attack them if you want to. But in this case, I wouldn't actually be able to because I can't land in that space. But I'm going to say I can slide through them. So I'm going to go 1, 2, go down to 4, and now 1, 2, go down to 3. So next time I'll only be able to move 1 space. And I'm actually finally going to use my divination crystal, which can be used in a variety of ways. I can use it to like rotate these hexes or these haze tiles. Like if I cared about the positioning of something, I can use them to flip them back over. I guess maybe to make the enemies spend extra movement flipping it back over again. But in this case, I'm going to be giving it to the shaman here and lock him down for 1 turn. So now we'll go on to the enemy phase. He will get rid of that lock, and then the followers get to go. Either one, they're both in the same space, gets a 5. So the first thing it's going to do is destroy this tile that it's on. That's 1 movement. It's now next to one of my tiles, so it wants to go there. So that's 2 movement, 3 to get rid of it. And then he can start coming after me, 4, 5. Then the other one wants to go and gets a 5 as well. So it's going to go 1, 2. I actually can't move into my space. I don't know. I assume the follower doesn't count as being there. I was going to say I'm holding on to him. So it's going to come in and get me, which means we roll the battle die, even though we're not battling. 3 means I have to discard 3 battle points worth of cards. So I'm going to spend 1 of not my color, which is 1 point's worth, and 1 of my color, which is 2 points worth. And that resolves that. But now I need to keep moving. So I'm going to spend 4 cards to plus up to 7. Forgot to tick down. I'm gonna move 3. 1, 2, 3. This goes down to 6. Those were both of my 2 actions. So now I just have to hope I don't get got. How high can that shaman roll? He gets a 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Think I'm good. Follower number 1 gets a 2. 1, 2. And the other follower gets a 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Count down 2 turns left. And with 6 movement, I can go 3, 1, 2. And that's all I needed. So I definitely cheated by forgetting to give them their crystals when they earned them. And that would have been relevant in battle earlier. If they beat me, I would have been sent back home, would have lost a crystal. That would have been an extra crystal for them. So things could have spiraled pretty badly, depending on how many crystals they have especially. I didn't use this at all, so if I had ended my turn here, I could have taken 1 crystal because that happens to be the special ability on this particular tile, but then it would degrade completely. So in the 2-player version of the game, the red lands degrade over the course of 4 uses. And then there's going to be a second red land underneath that could also then be used. In this particular scenario setup, there's a single red land that can be used a single time before it degrades. Is a special consideration for this mode, though, that when it does degrade, it does not send the shaman who activated it back to the hearth. So just so you know about the difference between 2-player and solo on that one. I think I covered most of the other stuff. Again, there are a bunch more scenarios. There are 7 in the book that I have here. So this is the final rescue, the bit of story, hunting monsters. So it kind of plays like a campaign, but it's just a series of scenarios. They're not linked mechanically. And I think one of the versions of the 2-player mode that comes with this same expansion would be these haze tiles do summon monsters. So the monsters do appear, they come out of the haze, and they can attack both the players. So that's an interesting extra twist you can add to your 2-player games. There'll be a link in the campaign page. I think it launched last week. I'm placing this a week later. But again, I already have the 2-player playthrough up, so you can see that too. So anyway, thanks for watching. Subscribe so we can get more subscribers. And bye. I'll stop rambling.